not that lasts forever. You only live once. So, live your life, not any other's lives. Take chances and never regret. Never. Never be late to do what you want to do right now. Because at one point of someday, everything you did will be exactly what you will be. Right? 아버지는 말하셨지 인생을 즐겨라 아버지께 여쭤보고파 당신은 인생을 즐겼나 왜 당연하게 당연하게 됐고 당연하지 않은 게 당연하게 됐어 왜 나 인생에서 나는 없고 그저 남의 인생들을 살고 됐어 이건 진짜야 도박도 게임도 아니야 딱 한 번뿐인 인생 넌 대체 누굴 위해서냐 9살 아니면 10살 때쯤 내 심장은 멈췄지 가슴에 손을 얹고 말해봐 내 꿈은 뭐였지 진짜 뭐였지?
So we're moving on to the second album now. It's actually like come around pretty quickly, to be honest. But yeah.
1 hour in, yeah, very, or 1.5 hours.
I mean, in terms of our episodes and things, like we're already moving on to the next album, and I mean the first one wasn't exactly the longest, and we did a bit of it on the other podcast, but I'm quite excited to go on to RUL8 because when Shadow came out and we found out that it was sampling the intro, I very much went back and just browsed over the whole album and analyzed all the lyrics on it because I was like, oh, they're going to be going back to this era and what an album, honestly. Like RUL8 is such a great album. It has such cockiness and resolve and just this fire, and I love it. I love that. Yeah.
Wrong album.
Yeah.
I have comments on this, but do you want to introduce the song and or this intro and what it's about?
Yes. So I've got a few comments, but not as many for this one because I think with this song, it's a very good gateway from the last album to this album. So the last album was very much about kind of, especially No More Dream, like we've forgotten how to dream. We don't know who we are anymore. We're just being told to live a certain way and we don't want to live like that anymore and things like that. And then moving on to this album, this song is kind of like a mixture of that feeling and then this resolve to change that, to break free and to do something else. And so I really liked that this intro really felt like a gateway from one album to the next album. And so he's just talking in it about how you only get one life to live and you're wasting it, so let's change that. And so he just talks about how people will tell him a certain thing of you should be this way, you should be that way, but he kind of finishes at the end with like, what is my dream? I need to look for it now. So yeah, I mean, I'll just say my comments before you get into it, because I think you'll have more to say on this than me. But so the main thing, obviously, I think you'll probably have this as well, is this is the song that says my heart stopped when I was 9 or 10 that he references in the UN speech.
I actually didn't have that. That's awesome.
Oh, you didn't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, well, yeah. So it has the line, my heart stopped when I was 9 or 10. And in his UN speech, he says in an intro to one of our early albums, this is what I said. And that's when he talks about how we became ghosts and lost our names because our hearts weren't beating anymore. And this message, honestly, really changed a lot for me, especially when I heard that UN speech and then when I went back to these albums. And again, at the end, he says, I ask, what was my dream? And then there's a pause and he says, wait, what was it really? And honestly, that's just so so relevant in this day and age. And I think it's universal, no matter where you are in the world. When you're young, when you're at school, you're told to do a certain thing, to follow education. You can do other things later, and you've just got to focus on getting this backup plan first, because the only thing in life that you can rely on is yourself and stability, and you need to get a good job, and you need to be able to support yourself, and everybody feels that way. And so it's, I'll just push off the dream for a while. You can come back to it, just push it away for a bit and focus on school. And then when you get older, but then by the time you get older, you're so in it that you don't even see. And this is what happened for me. Like, when I was younger, it was my dream to be a singer. I wanted to be a musician, and that's when I was 14 or 15, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to a music school, and I wanted to write songs, and I wanted to learn instruments, and that's what I wanted to do. But I was convinced to focus on school, and you can go back to that later. Just like, go to school, get your A levels, get your degree, and then you have a backup, and then you can go forward. And then I always had that mindset until I got to about halfway through university. And by that point, my dreams started to change. And when people would say, what do you want to do? It would be, I want to be a lecturer. I want to get a PhD, and then I want to be a lecturer, and I want to focus on studying and being in education. And that was my dream. And then when I found BTS and I saw all of these things and these messages, I was like, that was the dream that I had told myself was my dream, but it wasn't really my dream. And I always kind of described it as like, I'd convinced myself that 50% was 100%. And I was living at 50% and not even seeing it. And I'd put off 100% for so long, thinking that it just wasn't an option. And yeah, so this song like really gets to me, because it's just so personal, and it's something BTS taught me, and something that since finding them, I've been trying to undo. But my main point for all of this is, I wish that I'd have had someone like this when I was in school, when I was first told those things, so that I didn't have to have that whole process of going through all of that and then coming back full circle. And just how incredible it must have been for teenagers to hear this album and to see these messages. It's so important. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
I think what you're talking about and how you changed your dream to be, I don't know, more realistic is something that's common for people who have interests and passions and want to do things for a living that are creative, that are things that don't typically give you a steady income unless you're a musician at, I don't know, of BTS's caliber. I guess I'm a little similar in that I've always enjoyed writing, but I was like, okay, well, I can't make money that way. What can I make money at? Okay, I can finance money. But it was like later in life, and like the last couple of years, I've reintroduced myself to writing and found passions writing about BTS. So I don't know. I agree with you that it's so important to be reminded that ideas like this, that you should reevaluate your dream and make sure you're doing something that makes you happy, not something that somebody else says will make you happy. That's something you should do. And if no one is telling you that in your life, then like you can theoretically know that you should think about your dream, that you should love yourself. But if no one is telling you that repeatedly, if no one is reinforcing those messages as worthy of your time and energy and effort, you're gonna park it on the wayside, because there's other things that you have to do.
And the thing is, it's not even that they're just not telling you, they're telling you the opposite. And sadly, that's what society has become. You shouldn't be focusing on these things, you should be focusing on other things. And parents will convince you that you should be focusing on other things because that's what they think is the best thing to do because that's what they were told was the best thing to do. And yes, it is an easier way of like making income in the future, and it's the safe option. And I feel like for a lot of people the safe option is better, but for me, like, the safe option was never my choice. I was never a safe option kind of person. Yeah, and I think I had a point. What was I saying now? So yeah, like when society is actively telling you the opposite, you just adapt to it. And I think that's the same thing with what he says here with my heart stopped when I was 9 or 10. You change and you become a product of your environment. And it's so sad.
That's what I was going to say. I think the part in the beginning of the intro where he's talking in English, I like that what he says is, whatever you do becomes who you are. So if you want to follow your dream, you need to start now. Because if you follow a different dream or do something for someone else, then you become that person instead. And I just, I found that very, very true.
Yeah, I actually highlighted that one as well, because it's true. It's whether that be positive or negative, you can only know if you kind of give it your all. And that's the catch-22 of these things, in that if you're not giving your all to something, then you're probably not going to achieve it. And I just keep losing my train of thought.
You know, it's like the other thing though is like some people can give their all and it still won't be enough. So it's very hard advice to give because you want to tell everybody, oh, follow your dream. But if your dream is to be a chimney sweep who only wears red, like, okay, good luck supporting yourself. So I like that they don't just say, like, fuck the system, do what you want. They say, evaluate where it is that you're going, because what you're doing right now is what your future will look like.
Yeah.
And if you are okay with that future, good. If you're not okay, then you have to think about how to change it. But they don't give you the answer. They just...
Yeah, agree.
And so what I wanted to say is that Mama, Hong Kong, 2018, this song, a remix of it was put into their Mama performance where he like combined it with Fake Love, and I loved it. It was incredible. And I liked that all these years later, he answered himself from way back when. So if the message that he was saying before was that don't be late to what you want to do. By the way, I didn't understand. I always thought that the title of this album was like someone texting someone else on their way to school, like, oh, are you late too? Because, you know.
So did I, is it not?
No, because what he's saying in the intro is don't be late to what you want to do, because what you do becomes who you are. So don't be late. Like, don't put it off. And I was like, but anyway, so, and
I feel like it's both. I do feel like it's both.
I do think it's both, but I also like that he's just like saying, to, you know, whoever's listening to the album, like, oh, are you late to your dream too? Don't worry, that's common. Let's all pause to think and reevaluate.
Wow.
But so his answer in Mama in 2018 was, I'm an idol. I'm sick of fake love, fake friends, fake respect. I am who I am and I'm proud. So what I've done is who I am now, and like I am proud that I am an idol. And I just really love that, and I just think the mashup was incredible.
Yeah, everything you did would be exactly what you will be. So he did everything to become an idol, and an idol is what he became. And He didn't care.
Yeah, and I think when he says, I'm sick of the fake love, fake friends, fake respect, he's talking about the backlash BTS got when they started. Like, you know, all the people who would say one thing to their face and another thing behind their back, the ridicule from, and the rejection from the hip-hop community. And he's just like, I don't care about all of that. I am who I am. And I'm proud of it.
This was another thing I wanted to say that I forgot about.
What?
Like I said, I was watching all the old videos and things, and one thing that was really common with Namjoon's was he felt like he wasn't proving himself as a rapper in the group. He would say things like, oh, I can't really show my best in a small verse, or I met up with friends and they told me that it wasn't as good anymore, and I agree with them. And like, first of all, fuck you.
Fuck those friends.
Yeah, they were obviously the types of people that were fucking jealous and just
that were
hateful.
jealous and probably like, man, you're a poser. That's not how hip hop works.
Yeah.
Oh, what the fuck would they know?
Yeah, but I think he had this really big issue with feeling like he wasn't showing his potential, and I wonder if that's why they began doing solos in their albums and why Namjoon was the first one. Like, because it very much does veer off from tradition of what other people do. They don't really have solos in their albums of the group as a whole. And I just
Which
really
I love, by the way.
Love it. Yeah.
Like,
I
love
adore
it times 3,000%.
Yes. And it lets them, because I feel like Namjoon probably had quite a difficulty in not, especially at the beginning, I don't think so now, but at the beginning of the career with them, that he couldn't fully show himself. Like, he'd been doing things just solo and proving himself to people and getting lots of compliments, and then going into something where he was one of 7
and the leader,
and he wasn't the only person making decisions on the music, and so I wonder if that is why they decided to add in solos with this album. It would be interesting to know. But it gave him a chance to fully just express himself as an artist and an individual. And then the fact that they continued that with the other rappers and then with the vocalists as well.
Yeah.
I just love that.
You know what else? They might have done that because they had certain people in the group who had a much higher ability to produce, to write lyrics, specifically Namjoon and Yoongi. So had they continued to just make group songs, like, and that's all, then people would just have a tendency of leaning on those that were more talented in that area. It's just natural, right? You're a group and you have strengths in these areas with these people, let them lead. But if you force everybody to have a solo song, then they themselves have to think it through and think about what it is they want to sing about. Obviously, they can still get help putting all of that together, and I know they did. But it forces everybody to be more involved, and it stretches them as artists.
Yes.
And I think they really needed that. Like, I think the fact that they've had solo songs really just showcase that they all have the potential to be successful solo artists.
Oh, 100%. I've said it so many times that each of them, I think, would be successful in their own market. And
they still stay together, and that's why it's so much more meaningful.
But that links to the other thing I was going to say, in the sense of even if they loved each other as much as they do, if they weren't allowed to be individuals, if they weren't allowed to release their mixtapes when they wanted to put things on SoundCloud, to have solos in the album, they were bound to feel stifled and to feel like they can't be fully creative. And what a genius idea to let them be individuals within a group. And that's why a lot of groups break up, even if they like each other. It's because, well, I want to make the music I like, and I want to be able to showcase my full potential. And I just love that about it.
Agree. Is it common for other artists to have SoundClouds and release all this, like, other stuff in addition to their main company promoted stuff?
I don't think so. No. I think they'll have remixes but no, I don't think so.
Because I think that in itself is just so telling that you gave these immensely talented, creative people, you put them all together, you said, you have to make something together, you have to be cohesive here, but we understand that you are creative, and creative people are not, they're not factories. Like, you can't just say, make a creative thing, go. Here's the...
I'm not...
So if I just wanted to finish this. If you allow them an outlet, like just the freaking SoundCloud alone, like you give people a chance, you give those creative people a chance to just let out all of the energy that they have inside and not allow it to get pent up, because pent up creative energy is, I agree with you, why groups break up.
And what I was going to say is that it's not only that they give them the freedom, they actively assist with these things. They will give them the equipment and the team that they need. They will pay for music shootings. Like, that just shows, because they don't have to do that. Like, they can say, well, you're with our company as a group, and you can release solo things if you want to, but that's on you. But they don't do that. And
well, they kind of do, right? Because that's where I get confused, because like Namjoon said in one of their like promos, I think for maybe Love Yourself Answer, where he's like, we're allowed to make individual mixtapes and pursue other creative projects, but we have to do it on our own. We have to pay for it on our own. And obviously at this point in the game they have the funds. But it's like, I feel like it's like a parent telling their kid, like, okay, you want to do this? Go do it on your own. You have my full support.
I feel like maybe it's different now, but surely when like RM's first mixtape came out, surely he wouldn't have had the funds to film all of his videos.
No, that's where I get conflicted, because you're right. They get company filmed music videos.
Yeah.
For all of their stuff. So I don't know. Maybe
it's a mix.
Maybe it's like the original concept and all of this has to come from you, but you are allowed to use company resources when they are not being used for something else.
I think that's probably what it is, yeah. And just one last thing about this, we should have been on tangent really for it this whole time. But one last thing is that they couldn't release, as BTS, like obviously they can be sincere and genuine in their music, but there is a limit. Like, they couldn't have released the type of sound that August D was as BTS. It's just not feasible, because they have, some of their fan base is very young, and like they have a certain restrictions that they just need to be considerate of. And it's the same with Mono. Like with Mono, it's beautiful, but BTS albums always tend to have a resolve, and like Mono is very much, no, I'm not gonna put any ribbons on it. I'm gonna be as clear as it is, and this is how I feel. And same with obviously,
I'm gonna be sad.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be sad. And I mean, obviously we have Everything Goes in there, but I feel like they couldn't really have put these types of tracks on a BTS album. So having the outlet, and the same with Hope World, like when you think about Daydream and the lyrics in it, like, I want to get drunk and I want to go out with my friends and blah, 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 blah. Like, they can't really say that in a BTS song.
Because then the media goes, well, what are you trying to say here after all these other messages you've put out?
Yeah. And like, they have to censor things like alcohol. And it's just something they have to do as a group. But the fact that they have those platforms to be able to just fully release how they feel.
Plus also awesome. Mentally, like for the listener, it's a very clear distinction of this is not the same. This is different. Yes. So do not have the same expectations.
Yes. Anyway, do you have anything else to say about this first song?
No, it's great. It's phenomenal. Let's move on. No.
I think No is honestly quite a follow-on from the previous song, but it's more just a rebellion of, nah, fuck this, I'm out. I feel like that describes the song very well.
Yeah, so let me see if I don't have the lyrics in front of me, so please feel free to add on, but let me just give a quick summary. No is BTS's message. I forget what it's supposed to stand for. But it's them.
No offense?
Maybe.
Is it no offense? I'm not 100%
Maybe.
sure.
But
That
it's
might be a
them
rumor.
saying, you've always been told to work hard, study hard, so you can get into a good college and get a good job. Why? What are you doing that for? Is that your dream, or is that your parents' dream, or is that society's dream? And like, are you just supposed to take it and be mindless? Or when are you supposed to have your own opinion? So let's have your own opinion. And like they talk about, the chorus has like, you know, go to Seoul, go to Sky, which are those top 3 Korean universities that everybody wants to get into because they're the Korean equivalent of the Ivy League. And the music video is obviously like very dystopian.
What a music video.
Yeah.
So good.
Like visually that music video is incredible. It
really is.
It's so, the visual literacy in that music video is extremely high. You do not need to speak Korean to understand what it is that they're trying to get across in that song.
Yes.
But yeah, and then I think that's pretty much the gist of the song.
Yeah.
So you're right, it is a follow-up to this intro. And I wanted to make a comment though. Think about the context again that this song was written in. We've talked before about the fact that when we talked about Yoongi and then Hobi, like the context that BTS debuted in was one where it's like everyone's worried about finding a job, being able to support themselves, young people, massive unemployment rate for young people in Korea. They all in one way or another kind of rebelled against their parents' expectations for them to do what everybody else was doing, which was studying, going to university, getting as high grades as possible to have as high chance as possible of getting a good job and being able to support themselves. And they, because of their passions, because of whatever it is that drove them, said no and pursued an avenue for their future that most people don't think is very they just think it's very risky, right? And it took them 3 years to debut. So in all of that time, they were told, did you make a good choice here for your future? Doesn't seem like it. You're not gonna, like, you missed the boat. Should have taken the exam. Should have tried to get into college. You didn't. And they're like,
and they said this a lot in the last album of, oh, everybody's asking me when I'm going to debut. They say I should give it up and go to university. Like, so the fact that this is the follow-up to those feelings of them being a trainee, and then this is the resolve of, I know what I'm doing, and
I'm following my dream. I'm following the future that I wanted.
And you know what honestly is just so sad to me? Is that if it wasn't like this, society, I mean, like if as much weight was put behind creatives or different types of smart rather than just standard basic academia and the same levels of job security or blah blah blah, like it's just so sad. Like if parents supported all types of dreams and every person from day one could just follow what they wanted to do, like it would just be so much better. And I'm just getting all like utopian now.
No, I understand what you're saying, but you know, we both know that even parents, even society saying, should you really be pursuing that is said from a point of concern, from a point of love. Like, I don't think this will be able to give you the comfortable future you want. You will struggle, you will suffer in your future with no guarantee of it paying off. Is this really the best thing that you could do with your life? Do you really have no other avenues that are as likely of making you happy?
But that's what I think is the sad thing about it. And it's like I said before, like if I hadn't have found BTS, I would have continued on my journey that I had planned for myself of getting a degree, getting a master's, getting a PhD, becoming a lecturer, having kids. And then when my kids went to school, I probably would have been saying the exact same thing, and I would have forgotten how I used to feel. And that's how it continues, isn't it?
It does, because we all live in the same society, in the same reality, unless it changes. And that is why I, for example, really admire Big Hit, because they're trying to take a business model of creating music groups that then produce music and entertain people and generate income, and trying to turn it from this kind of factory-based approach where you kind of squeeze as much utility out of your assets until you can't anymore, until they have to go to the military, until they get exhausted, until they can't be creative anymore, until they mentally break down and do something that causes a scandal. Like, that is seemingly the model that the other K-pop agencies were taking. And also because it seemed like, well, that's the easiest way, like that's the most surefire way that you're going to make as much money off of these people as possible while you can. And in contrast to that, Bang PD came in and he's like, no, these are creative people, they're not factories, you have to treat them differently, it's going to take more effort, more time, more money, but out of that you will get something that is much more self-sustaining, a group that can connect with their fans all the better. And if you build a fan base, then you can create other products around BTS that don't involve them. So like we talked about this before, how it used to be that the model for before BTS, it's like, oh, you're a musician, you make money by making albums and live performances. So either individually or going on like for a show, or going on tour, and that's it. That is how you make money off of your artist. But in contrast to that, and then like merch is like a very small percentage of the total money you can make. In contrast to that, you have Big Hit, which is like, let's create intellectual property around our artists, so that like, you know, like the BU, BT21, the whatever drama games, the drama shows, so that then we can take all of that intellectual property, make money off of it, and BTS can be separate from that, not involved. So if someone's playing the game, like BTS World, there is, Jimin isn't sitting on the other end getting tired because he has to like click through screens for 80 billion people to say stuff. It's pre-recorded, it's separate from him. Everybody is making money, you know, that has to, you know, for this to be a profitable venture. And it allows the artists to focus on what they're good at and not make them exhausted and make them run ragged trying to make everyone happy.
And this is why it's so frustrating when people say like, oh, they didn't even know about the music video. Thank you. They didn't even know about the music video filming. Oh, Big Hit obviously isn't asking them. Oh, they could have had Jimin dance that solo dance. He's a contemporary dancer, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, aren't you the same people that complain about how hard they work and how tired they look? Because that just seems hypocritical to me. They can't do everything. They're human beings. They can't be involved in the decision making of everything. Like, they'll be involved in the things they want to be involved in. And I'm sure they're just, if it was me and I was working on the next album and somebody came to me and was like, oh, do you want to decide on how this story in this game goes for your character, or would you rather I do it?
They're gonna be like,
pick.
They're gonna be like,
please,
I don't have time to think about
it.
this. I'm not qualified. I don't have any experience. No, I'm good at music.
Let me focus on music. Yeah, exactly. So just reconsider that. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Moving back to the song, so we really need to kind of pick it up. Our pace is very slow today. I'm sorry. We're just both a bit.
30% mental capacity. I don't have anything to say. I'm done.
Okay, so I just have a few things to say. So one of the main things about this song, it talks a lot about how individualizing our society is, and how like I do a lot of studying around this and how we've moved from a society that used to be very community oriented to being very individualizing. And so in today's day and age, it's very much I focus on me. I have to think about me. I have to think about what car I'm going to get. I have to think about what house I'm going to get. I need to think about what food I'm getting, like what test results I'm getting, etc., etc. And it relates to everyone just feeling so isolated and so alone, and like you just your neighbor is also your competition. So you are competing with everybody around you, even if you don't want to be, because that's just the way a lot of the society runs. And like in this song, they say things like, the ones who made us step on even our close friends to climb up. So I think, again, this is what BTS are doing, which makes them so special, is they're reminding people of the thing that we're missing, and that thing is community and is human connection. And that's the thing that I feel like, especially when you look at teenagers these days, how insecure, how alone, how much they suffer with identity and with mental health and all these types of things. In my personal opinion, a lot of it is to do with this lack of human connection. And isn't it so incredible that BTS, even from this early on, are saying, open your eyes. This is what they're doing. Stop. Like, don't do it. Don't listen anymore. Like, say no. And
Everybody
I think,
say no.
yeah, I think that's the main thing I have to say for this. Honestly, I think a lot of people know this song very well. It's a title, so the lyrics, I think most people know very well. Most people know the messages.
I can't listen to this song anymore without thinking of MMA 2019 with their like dubstep dance break for this song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
So great. So yeah, we'll move on.
쉴 틈도 없이 학교와 집 아니면 PC방이다인 집 같은 삶들을 살며 1등을 강요하는 학생의 꿈과 현실 사이에 이중간첩 우리 공부하는 기교를 만들고 누구 1등이 아니면 나고를 구분 쉽게 만든 건 틀을 같은 건 어른이란 걸 쉽게 수고할 수밖에 단순하게 생각해도 결국 각 시간에 친한 친구도 밟고 올라서게 만든 게 누구라 생각해 어른들은 내게 말하지 힘든 건 지금뿐이라고 조금 더 참으라고 나중에 하라고 Everybody say no 더는 나중이란 말로 안돼 더는 남의 꿈에 갇혀 살지만 We roll, we roll, we roll Everybody say no 정말 지금이 아니면 안돼 아직 아무것도 해본 게 없잖아 막연한 뿐인 통장 내 불행은 나도 초가지 공부하는 한숨 공장 계속되는 돌려막기 어른들이 하는 고백 너네 참 편한 거래 눈에 넘치게 행복한 거래 그럼 이렇게도 불행한 나는 뭔데 공부는 대화 출제가 없어 밖에 나 같은 내가 넘쳐 똑같은 꽃과-같이 인생 도대체 누가 책임져줘 어른들은 내게 말하지 힘든 건 지금뿐이라고 조금 더 참으라고 나중에 하라고 Everybody say no 더는 나중이란 말로 안돼 더는 남의 꿈에 갇혀 살지만 We roll, we roll, we roll Everybody say no 정말 지금이 아니면 say no. Everybody say no. Everybody say no. Everybody say no.